The beta test is over. The world's first VR, virtual reality MMORPG, Sword Art Online, is about to go live. Former beta tester Kirigaya Kazuto puts on his nerve gear and gets ready for the official launch. At 1 p.m. on Sunday, November 6, 2022, he is transported to the Town of Beginnings on the first floor of the virtual world Aincrad, under the name Kirito, his avatar. Klein, another player, notices that Kirito knows his way around and asks for help after confirming that he is indeed one of the lucky 1,000 beta testers. After showing Klein the ropes while hunting boars, the two decide to part ways, since Klein has a pizza already ordered and on its way. But they find the logout button missing from the menu and figure it must be some sort of bug. That is, until they're transported to the center of town where the game's creator, Kayaba Akihiko, dispels their suspicions. It's not a bug, it's a feature. He goes on to explain that removing the nerve gear each player has on will send a powerful microwave signal and fry their brain, should they choose to remove it or if their health points reach 0. The only way to survive and log out is to clear all 100 floors by defeating the boss at the end of each before moving on to the next. With that, every player's avatar transforms to reflect their real-life appearance, and panic ensues. Kirito asks Klein to come with him to the next village, but Klein stays behind since he can't abandon his friends, and they part ways. Determined to clear the game, Kirito knows what he must do: become as strong as possible and survive. The first floor still hasn't been cleared a month later, while over 2,000 of the original 10,000 players have already lost their lives. Some of the stronger ones have a meeting to discuss how to find and tackle the boss. A player named Diabel reveals that his party discovered the boss room. Their plan is to lead a raid group comprised of multiple parties of 6 to overpower the boss. As a solo player, Kirito searches for a party to join, but he's out of luck, until he spots another solo player, Asuna, and suggests they form a party of 2. But before they can get ready, a player named Kibao asserts that ex-beta testers need to apologize for going on ahead and leaving the new players behind. Another player, Agil, stands up, putting Kibao in his place. The ex-beta testers are the ones writing and handing out guidebooks for free. The raid group sets out to face Ilfang the Kobold Lord. Using the guidebook's information, everything goes smoothly. That is, until the boss draws a Nodachi instead of a Talwar sword. This wasn't in the beta. Kirito tries to warn Diabel, but isn't fast enough. The boss makes quick work of him. Kirito tries to give him some health pots, but he refuses, admitting to being an ex-beta tester who's after the rare item given to the player who lands the final blow. Kirito and Asuna begin their assault on the boss, but one mistake sends him flying into her. Agil steps in, holding off the boss until they recover. Then Kirito delivers the final blow. It's over. The raid group begins to rejoice, everyone except for Kaibao, who accuses Kirito of being an ex-beta tester. To everyone's surprise, Kirito bursts out laughing. His demeanor changes. Now overconfident and cocky, he retorts that he's nothing like the other beta testers. He's the player who cleared the most floors during the beta. He's not a cheater, he's a beater. Asuna catches up to Kirito, who admits she's strong and advises her to join a guild instead of limiting herself by playing solo. Some months later, in an 11th floor tavern, the Moonlit Black Cats Guild raises a glass to thank Kirito for saving their lives. Despite being a solo player, he accepts their offer to join their guild, but hides his true level from the members. The guild leader messages him the next day, explaining that Sachi went missing. When Kirito finds her, she proposes that they run away. Instead of fighting, they could wait until someone else clears the game. He assures her that the guild is strong enough, that she shouldn't fear death, while making a promise to himself to protect them. The rest of the guild decides to go tackle a dungeon, while the leader buys them a house. They stumble across a hidden room, with only a chest in the center. Kirito suspects it's a trap and tries to warn them. As the door seals shut, their teleportation crystals are useless. They're surrounded by mobs. One by one, Kirito watches helplessly as his fellow guild members die. Sachi turns to him, but he can't make out her last words. Kirito learns of a rare item that resurrects a fallen comrade, but it only drops from a secret boss that spawns on Christmas Day. Traveling to the spawn point, he finds Klein's guild has been following him, offering to help. But those aren't the only pursuers. The Divine Dragons Alliance shows up, and Klein promises to hold them off, giving Kirito enough time to find the boss and defeat him solo. After returning to find Klein's group still alive, Kirito tosses the rare item in the snow, telling Klein to keep it. It's of no use to him now. The moonlit black cats have been dead for months, and the item is only effective for 10 seconds after a player dies. Back at the inn, Kirito receives a recorded message. It's from Sachi, explaining how grateful she was for his friendship and how she doesn't want him to blame himself for her inevitable death. Silica, a beast tamer, leaves her party after an argument with another member, Rosalia. She gets lost trying to find her way back to the town of Mish. Surrounded by a group of monsters in the forest, Silica's pet, Pina, steps in to protect her, sacrificing her life in the end. Without any healing crystals, Silica's odds are not looking good, but luck is on her side, as Kirito happens upon her and slays the circling foes. He asks Silica if the feather Pina dropped is a named item. It turns out it's her familiar's heart. Kirito tells her the rumor of a rare item that can revive any tamed beast within 3 days of its death, while promising to help her retrieve it. Rosalia mocks Silica back in town, assuming that they're heading to the Hill of Memories to revive Pina. Silica doesn't understand why she's such a vile player, so Kirito explains how some MMO players roleplay evil characters, but in SAO it's a different story. The cursor above a player's head turns orange when the player commits a crime, and turns red when they get a PK, player kill, which is murder under these circumstances. That night, Kirito hears someone outside of their room at the inn. They are being watched. The next morning, they port to floor 47, where the Hill of Memories is located. Silica wonders why he's helping her. To Kirito's embarrassment, he admits that she reminds him of his sister. Eventually, they find the item and decide to wait to revive Pina in town where it's safe. However, on the way back to the transporter, Kirito notices someone lying in wait. It's Rosalia. It turns out she's part of a PK guild, Titan's Hand, despite having a green cursor. She's the bait. Rosalia believes she was hunting them, but it was actually Kirito who was tracking her. Silver Flag's guild leader survived his guild's massacre, begging anyone who would listen to avenge his friends and put her in prison where she belongs. The rest of Titan's Hands come out of hiding, recognizing Kirito, dressed in black, one-handed sword, no shield. Attacking all at once doesn't even scratch him. At level 78, with enough battle regen bonuses, he's practically invincible. There's nothing Rosalia can do. Kirito transports her to prison and takes Silica back to town, apologizing for using her as bait. She revives Pina, and they part ways, promising to meet again someday. Asuna, now vice commander of the Knights of the Blood Oath, holds a meeting with the assault team on floor 56, going over boss-killing strategies. Asuna is adamant about her plan to lure the boss into town, but Kirito objects. She insists that NPCs aren't people. After all, they respawn. Aegil mentions the growing tension between them, reminding Kirito of the advice he gave her and how far she's come. A few weeks later, on floor 59, Asuna finds Kirito taking a nap in the shade of a tree. She tries lecturing him, but he insists that it's the optimal weather in Aincrad. It would be a waste not to enjoy it. Kirito wakes up to find Asuna fast asleep and decides to keep watch. She treats Kirito to a meal to thank him for making sure no one killed her while she slept. Someone screams, and they rush outside to see a player hanging from a balcony with a spear piercing his chest. Moments later, he's gone, dead, vanished. But nobody can die in a safe zone, and there isn't a red cursor in sight. They decide to investigate. Yoruko, the player who screamed, steps forward, claiming she was friends with the victim, Kynes. With the witness in tow, they retrieve the one thing that might give them some answers, the murder weapon. Aegil doubles as a night merchant and has a high enough appraisal skill to determine the weapon's owner. The spear was crafted by a player named Grimlock. Apparently, Yoruko recognizes the name and details the destruction of her old guild, Golden Apple. They found a rare ring and voted in favor of selling it. Griselda, the leader, tried to sell it and turned up dead, leaving her in-game husband, Grimlock, a widower. The third person who wanted to keep the ring, along with Yoruko and Kynes, was Schmidt, who left the guild to fight on the front lines with the Divine Dragons Alliance. Kirito figures there are only 3 possible ways to die in a safe zone: a fair duel, a bug, or an item or skill. But he rules out the last option, since the game system is fair and wouldn't contain anything that would violate the only safe place for players. They get Schmidt to meet with them, when Yoriko begins to freak out, inching ever closer to the window. Sitting on the sill, she reasons that Griselda is the only one with motive to kill. It must be her ghost seeking revenge, when suddenly her eyes widen and she falls from the second-floor window with a dagger in her back, dead. Kirito spots a cloaked figure watching from a nearby rooftop, but before catching up to the anonymous player, they use a teleportation crystal and escape. Schmidt starts spiraling, believing that Griselda's ghost has returned to seek revenge. That night, Kirito and Asuna sit on a bench, wondering if it was really Griselda's ghost. But why would a ghost need a teleportation crystal? Kirito is surprised that Asuna can cook. When she offers him some food, he fumbles, and the food disappears when it hits the ground. Kirito has an epiphany. He knows how they've been pulling off the killings. Schmidt visits Griselda's grave when 2 mysterious figures appear in front of him. Terrified, he confesses. After the vote, he found a teleportation crystal in his inventory, along with written instructions to bind it to the room Griselda was staying at, swearing he had no idea who gave him the orders. Kirito explains to Asuna that a player's health points can't drop to 0 inside a safe zone, but an item's durability can. Kain's armor lost all its durability, and right when it disintegrated, he used a crystal to teleport, creating a convincing enough death. Yoriko never turned around, so the dagger was already taking the durability of her cloak down to 0 the moment she fell out the window. Just when Schmidt finishes confessing and begging for forgiveness, 3 cloaked figures appear and paralyze him, members of the Laughing Coffin, a murder guild. However, they decide to depart when Kirito shows up at Griselda's grave. Asuna explains that when players marry in-game, their inventory and storage become shared between them. But what happens when one dies? Everything goes to the spouse, so the ring must still be in Grimlock's possession. It must have been him who hired Griselda's murderer. Asuna finds Grimlock lurking in the forest near the gravesite. He tries to justify why he had to kill her, revealing that they were married in the real world too. She changed when they began playing SAO, and he just couldn't take it. Kynes and Yoriko ask to deal with Grimlock themselves, taking him away. Asuna asks Kirito what he would do if his wife changed. He replies that he would be happy, definitely not reason enough to resort to murder. They turn around and see Griselda's ghost, and Asuna asks Kirito to friend her. Asuna visits her blacksmith friend, Liz, on her day off, missing Kirito, who shows up after she leaves. He asks if she has any swords as strong or stronger than his elucidator. She presents him with the strongest sword she has ever made. He asks to test its durability by trying to break his own sword with it. Liz is dumbfounded as she watches her sword snap in half with a single strike. If she had the right materials, she could forge a blade of equal caliber. On floor 55, there's a dragon who eats crystals and stores a rare metal in its stomach, but he needs a master smith with him to get the drop. The two ascend a snowy mountain to reach the dragon's lair, but Kirito tells Liz to hide while he fights, despite her insisting that she can help. Distracted, they both get thrown into a giant circular pit where they can't use teleportation crystals. The only way out is up. Kirito takes a running start and tries to scale the walls, to no avail. The two decide to camp out at the bottom for the night. When Liz wakes up, she finds Kirito digging through the snow. He discovers the rare ore they were after. They're in the dragon's lair, and the ore is really the dragon's excrement. It turns out they're nocturnal too, Liz mentions, as the dragon dives into the hole to greet them good morning, sending them flying. At least it's one way to get out. Liz forges the perfect sword. It's exactly what Kirito was looking for. She refuses to accept payment. Instead, she demands to become his own personal smith. Right as she begins to confess her feelings for Kirito, Asuna bursts through the door. It's pretty clear that there's something between the two of them. Almost 2 years have passed since launch, and Kirito is still flying solo. While traversing a forest, a rare animal crosses Kirito's path, a ragu rabbit. After catching it, he brings the S-rank ingredient to Egil, attempting to sell it since neither of them has a high enough cooking skill to prepare it. If only they knew someone who did. Asuna taps Kirito on the shoulder, with another Knight of the Blood Oath member in tow. She informs them that she's just maxed out her cooking skill and agrees to cook the rabbit if they split it evenly. Since Kirito doesn't have any cookware at his place, she decides to invite him over for dinner, to his surprise. She then dismisses her bodyguard, Kurodil, who takes offense that she thinks Kirito is more than capable of doing his job. After dinner, Asuna confesses that she's concerned that the game is becoming too challenging for a solo player and decides to ask, more like force, Kirito to join her and become a party of 2. The next morning, Asuna teleports to meet Kirito before they head to the dungeon, but Kurodil is close behind them and confronts Kirito, challenging him to a duel to see who is more fit to protect Asuna. The battle begins, but it's over with a single swing. Kurodil's sword is broken at the hilt, but he refuses to accept the loss. They fight their way through the dungeon on the 74th floor. Kirito is impressed and relieved to fight with someone who knows what they're doing. After a while, they come across the boss room. Teleportation crystal in hand, they push the great doors open to find a giant blue-eyed demon. The braziers light up the room, and the 2 of them turn in a panic to escape from the chamber. Asuna interrogates Kirito. Why doesn't he use a shield, as a one-handed sword user? But she drops it when he becomes uncomfortable. She pulls out a picnic basket filled with food she made. She's been discovering how to emulate real-world food and flavors. Klein's guild shows up and wonders why Kirito is in a party as a solo player, especially with a girl. While the guys fawn over Asuna, the army, a guild that operates on the 1st floor, appears, demanding the map data Kirito recorded. He doesn't put up a fight, since he was going to share the information for free anyway. Noticing how beat up and exhausted the army members are, they try to warn them against tackling the boss in such a state, but the army leader ignores them and they head for the boss. Kirito and Asuna sprint to the door, hearing multiple people scream. They can't use their teleportation crystals, just like the hidden room where Kirito lost the black cats. The army group's leader goes down, dying in front of them. There's no choice but to try and save as many people as possible. Kirito holds off the boss so the others can escape. He can't let them die. He has to reveal the reason why he only uses one-handed swords. He acquired the ability to dual wield, a skill no one else has ever seen. Faster. He has to go faster. Kirito unleashes an insane flurry of blows, leaving him the only one standing, only for about 2 seconds before he collapses with only a sliver of health left. Klein demands to know what that was, a unique skill that isn't on any list or guide. Kirito must move out of his home because nobody will leave him alone after his secret is publicized. But that's not the only bad news. Asuna takes Kirito to speak with Heathcliff, the leader of the Knights of the Blood Oath. He isn't exactly thrilled that Kirito is poaching one of their best members and challenges him to a duel. If he loses, he must become a member of the guild. Kirito isn't the only one with a unique skill. Heathcliff is the sole user of Divine Blade, a skill that maximizes both attack and defense. No one's ever seen his hit points dip into the yellow zone. The arena is completely packed as both fighters prepare to duel. Kirito tries to use his speed to his advantage, but wasn't expecting the captain's shield proficiency. His guard breaks, and Kirito lands a blow. Heathcliff was not prepared for that. Another opening. This is it. But for some reason, time slows down, and his attack fails. It's over. The Knights of the Blood Oath just gained their newest member. Asuna wonders why he adamantly refuses to join a guild and learns the truth. The guilt Kirito carries for not saving the Midnight Black Cats made him swear never to join another guild. It's training time. As if anything could be worse, he's paired with Kurodil, but their superior, Godfrey, reassures Kirito. After stopping for a lunch break, Kirito notices Godfrey go down. He's paralyzed. Unable to use any crystals after relinquishing them for training, there's nothing Kirito can do while he watches Kurodil murder their superior. While making his way over to finish Kirito off, he reveals that he's actually a member of the Laughing Coffin. With his life waning fast, he refuses to die and tries to fight the paralysis. Good thing Asuna was following them the whole time. She turns her attention to her former bodyguard, but believes his feigned surrender. Right as Kurodil is about to attack Asuna, Kirito steps in, taking the blow directly to his forearm, sacrificing his right hand to save her, and viciously attacking their assailant. There's no way around it now. Kirito is a murderer. Kirito kisses Asuna to dispel any doubts, and they promise to protect each other no matter what. They spend the night together and decide to take a break from the front line for a while. He suggests they get a house by the lake on floor 22, and then they can get married. Heathcliff approves their requested time off. They buy the lake house and get married. After relaxing for a while, Kirito becomes restless. He tells Asuna he has a surprise while taking her into the woods. He heard rumors of townsfolk seeing ghosts in the forest. As soon as the words leave his mouth, Asuna spots a small girl wearing white wandering through the trees. But it's no ghost. Another player, perhaps? But she doesn't have a cursor. And yet, she's not an NPC or a quest giver. They bring her back to the cottage. In the morning, the girl finally wakes up after passing out right after they found her. Her name is Yui, but as for the rest of her memories, she can't seem to recall anything. Yui starts calling them mommy and daddy after having a tough time pronouncing Kirito. They decide to see if anyone knows her in the town of beginnings, since it's their best shot at finding her parents, or at least someone who knows her. About 30% of the players still alive are on the first floor, around 2,000. Most of the residents are low-level players who don't wish to fight, but it's also where the army has taken root. They stumble upon a patrol extorting a group of children. Asuna makes quick work of them. Suddenly, Yui starts reaching for the sky, saying something about everyone's hearts and always being in the dark, when a loud hissing white noise comes out of nowhere as Yui faints. They take Yui back to the church, where a player has been taking care of all the kids in the game, but she's never seen Yui before. Yulier, the army's second-in-command, appears at the door, thanking them for putting the soldiers in their place and requesting their help. She details how the guild has become corrupt and more brazen, sending members to their deaths on the upper floors. The massacre they witnessed was on Kibao's orders, and now he's trying to get rid of Thinker, the guild leader. He lured Thinker to a dungeon below the town of beginnings, telling him to come unarmed, just to talk. But Kibao left him there to die. Asuna is skeptical, but Yui affirms that Yulier is telling the truth. Kirito decides to take the chance, and Yui insists on joining them. Thinker is still alive in a safe zone, but when they get close, he warns that it's a trap. But it's too late. They're face to face with a boss whose level is too high for them to see. There's no way they can beat him. That is until Yui steps between them. Revealing herself to be an immortal object, she begins hovering and summons a huge flaming sword, destroying the boss with a single blow. Yui's memories are finally restored. Yui explains how the system is run by the Cardinal program and that she's an AI meant to aid players' mental states. But trapped and alone, she could only watch while her programming slowly broke down. One day, she found two players who felt joy for the first time since the game launched, Kirito and Asuna, so she set out to find them. However, when Yui uses the GM console to delete the boss, the main Cardinal program locates and begins erasing her. Kirito jumps into action. Using the GM console, he creates an in-game item containing Yui's program. After their 2-week vacation, Kirito and Asuna receive an urgent summons from Heathcliff, requesting their return to the front line. He debriefs them on the latest developments. A 20-member recon team scouted a boss. Half of them got trapped in the center of the anti-crystal boss chamber. When it was over, the room was completely empty, no trace of the players or the boss. Kirito asks Asuna to stay behind, but she tells him if anything happened, she wouldn't be able to go on living without him. The next day, everyone gathers to get ready to face the boss. Even Klein and Egil are there to help. The raid group charges into the room, but it's completely empty. Well, not completely. The Skull Reaper drops from the ceiling. It mows down players with ease, one-shotting anyone who can't negate the damage. Players are going down one after the other. But if Kirito and Asuna block together, they have a chance of survival, no matter how slim. Success. They pull off the impossible, but they still have 25 more floors left. Is it even possible to survive, let alone clear them all? Kirito notices that Heathcliff's health hasn't turned yellow. Thinking back to their duel, it suddenly hits him. He launches an attack against the captain, only to see the same immortal object indicator that Yui had. Something had been bugging Kirito. Why create an RPG if you aren't going to play it? Captain Heathcliff is Akihiko Kaiba, the creator of SAO. It first occurred to him during their duel, when Kaiba increased his speed to win, claiming that Kirito was too fast and strong. He would have lost if he didn't cheat. He confirms his true identity, revealing that he is the final boss. Kaiba always thought he'd face off with Kirito at the end. Before he leaves for the 100th floor, he gives Kirito a chance to duel. If he wins, he clears the game and all remaining players are logged out safely. Despite his friends' warnings, this could be their only chance to survive. Kirito thanks them for everything before preparing to fight Kaiba, making him promise not to allow Asuna to commit suicide should he lose. This isn't a game. This is a fight to the death. Using skills that Kaiba didn't design is his best bet, but it's not enough. He's wide open, and Kaiba is already saying sayonara. Before he can do anything, Asuna comes between them, sacrificing herself. Kaiba plunges his sword into Kirito's chest, taking his health points to 0. But Kirito refuses to die. He spears the captain with his sword, killing both of them simultaneously. He's transported to a platform in the sky, along with Asuna and Kaiba, who can't really give a good reason as to why he created SAO. It was merely to create the world he's always dreamed of, one where he was in control. Kirito and Asuna embrace, knowing that their time together was the happiest either of them had ever been, until Kazuto awakens in the hospital, determined to find Asuna in the real world. Thank you for sticking until the end. Subscribe for more videos like this.